There's a quality to certain rooms in Britain that stops you mid-step. Nothing in the room is particularly grand. Most of what's in it looks slightly worn. The carpet has a path worn into it where feet have traveled the same route for 40 years. The leather of the armchair nearest the fire has gone from whatever color it started as to something darker, softer, with a faint shine at the armrests from thousands of evenings. The curtains are heavy, and they don't quite hang straight. And the room is completely right. That's the thing. It just is. What you're standing inside took generations to arrive at. That's not a comment about inheritance or wealth. It's a comment about time. The rooms that feel most settled in Britain's country houses didn't get that way because someone chose correctly. They got that way because nobody chose at all for long stretches. The house continued, objects arrived and stayed, and the room accumulated rather than assembled. Designers use the word patina, but patina is only the surface of it. Patina is what happens to objects. What happens to rooms is something slower. A room used seriously, for its actual purpose, through enough decades develops a quality of weight. The walls absorb it, the floors record it. The air of the place seems thicker than air in rooms that haven't been through anything yet. You register this before you've identified anything specific. The body knows it before the eye does. The entrance hall is usually where you first understand what you're dealing with. Britain's better country houses treat this room with a seriousness that modern building has mostly abandoned. The hall isn't a lobby or a corridor to move through. It's the first room, the one that tells you what the house believes about itself before you've spoken to anyone in it. Stone flags on the floor, cool to the foot even in August. The temperature difference between stepping off the gravel outside and crossing onto York stone inside is immediate and physical. The house hasn't been sealed off from the earth beneath it. A chimneypiece in stone large enough that the fire doesn't look lost inside it. A grandfather clock with a tick you can hear 2 rooms away, the house keeping its own time independently of anything going on in it. Antlers on the wall, not as decoration but as record. A worn wool runner on the stair that's been there longer than anyone can ask about. The message of the hall is clear without being stated. This house existed before you arrived and will continue after you leave. That's not cold. The house just predates you. And there's a comfort in that, stepping inside something older than a single person's choices. The main reception rooms in the great Georgian houses weren't designed from feeling. They were calculated. The proportion of height to width to length was worked out mathematically before a single piece of plaster was laid. The chimneypiece was always centered on the wall opposite the windows, because when you enter a room, your eye goes first to the dominant light source and then to the object on the opposite wall, and the fireplace had to be there to receive that glance. The door surrounds were sized in response to the window surrounds across the room. The dado rail sat at a height that divided the wall into specific thirds. Every element spoke to every other element, and that conversation was settled before any furniture arrived. What this produces is a room where the eye always resolves. Whatever direction you look from, something holds. There's no leftover, no gap nobody accounted for. Modern rooms almost never do this, because the arithmetic wasn't done at the start. The house was built, then decorated by someone else, then furnished by someone else again, and the result is a room that works adequately, but never settles. The library is the room that reveals the most. Books, obviously, but specifically books that have been used. Books missing from shelves because someone is reading them. Books doubled up because the collection outgrew the space. Our books rebound and pass to the next generation with names written on the inside pages in different hands. The Grand Tour brought Roman statues and Greek manuscripts back to Britain across the 18th century, and the library had to hold them. A bronze head on a plinth beside the window, a mosaic laid into the floor, objects for which the room rearranged itself, and which have been where they are long enough that the room would look wrong without them. The smell of a library in an old British house is specific. Old leather bindings, cold stone, and the dry mineral note of seasoned oak. Not quite any of those 3 separately, all of them at once, produced by 300 years of the room being exactly what it is. You'd have to close it for a century and strip the books out to lose it. The formal drawing rooms in Georgian country houses weren't painted. They were upholstered. Silk damask hung on the walls. At Holcombe Hall in Norfolk, the main saloon was finished in kaffoy, a cloth woven from wool, linen, and silk in a deep crimson. At Felbrigg Hall, the original wall hangings were replaced when they wore out, and you can still see the shadow of the earlier fabric in the plaster where the brackets held it away from the wall. These choices weren't decorative. Heavy cloth on the walls of a room that will be cold 9 months of the year absorbs sound and gives the room a density that paint never achieves. When the damask fades, and it does over 80 years, the room doesn't lose quality. The cloth becomes part of the house rather than a covering on it. The flooring in these rooms is usually oak, wide boards, and are not stripped, laid when the timber was straight-grained and slow-grown, and the boards could be 3 feet wide without checks or splits, waxed rather than lacquered, so the grain can open slightly under use, and the surface develops irregularly. Darker where feet have pressed it daily, lighter near the wall where the sun comes in low through tall sash windows every afternoon. A floor like this isn't finished, it's still becoming. The right oil, the right wood, enough years. The difference is underfoot before the eye has found anything to explain it. The Inglenook fireplace in a proper country house room is the reason the room works, not a feature. The Bressumer, the heavy timber beam spanning the opening above the fire, is blackened from centuries of smoke and so dense with absorbed heat that it barely burns anymore. The stone of the chimneypiece has moved from whatever pale shade it started as to a warm brown gray at the sides where the updraft carries the smoke past it. After a fire burns down for the evening, the stone continues to radiate for an hour. The air at 11 at night, well after the fire is out, is different from the air in a room heated by pipes. It has weight to it. It feels inhabited in a way that mechanical heat doesn't produce. The boot room sits at the back of the house, between the kitchen garden and the house proper, slate on the floor, hooks along one wall for coats, leads, baskets, a bench for pulling on boots. It smells of damp wool and cold stone. Nothing in this room was chosen. Everything was specified by function so directly that taste never had to intervene. Slate drains and cleans without effort. Iron hooks hold a coat for a century without complaint. The timber bench will outlast anyone who sits on it this morning. This room makes sense of the whole house in a way the drawing room can't alone. The drawing room tells you what the family aspired to. You understand how they actually lived in the boot room. A house that takes both seriously has an integrity that a house conceived only as a series of formal rooms doesn't reach. The mud stops here. Everything beyond it is kept. What makes all of this impossible to replicate is that it requires time, and specifically, the time each material needs to become itself. The stone flags in the entrance hall of Hardwick Hall, built in the 1590s, I have been worn smooth in a path from door to stair by 4 centuries of feet choosing the same direction because warmth was always in that direction. The wearing is precise, specific. The floor records not just use, but the pattern of use, the daily logic of the house. You can buy stone flags, you can't buy that. The artificially distressed surfaces, the brass that came patinated from the factory. The eye reads all of it as false without knowing quite why. Where that follows actual use has a specificity to it. The armrest of a chair darkens exactly where an arm rested. A drawer handle goes smooth precisely where a thumb pushed over 10,000 mornings. These things happen in particular places, and the particularity is what reads as real. But to apply wear arbitrarily, and something in the composition registers the wrongness even when the mind can't name it. The rooms in old British houses that feel most resolved are almost never rooms where anyone made the right choices. They're rooms where someone began something and chose materials honestly, built honestly, let function come before appearance, and then life continued in them for long enough that the room and the life became the same thing. There's no design decision that produces that. No schedule, no shortcut. You can only start and use it and stay.